Hey, it's red.
It's red. Dang it. Forgot to turn the button on again. What is up, everybody? Welcome back. It is a Tuesday, every other Tuesday. And you guys are watching the Orion podcast. I'm Chad Brock.
And I'm Zach Bailiff.
Welcome to our little show. What is up, everybody out there in Orion land? Welcome back to the channel. A little different background this week. We've got the Kusa X background left over from last night's live cast and Thursday night's future live cast about the Kusa X. So check us out on Doc Talk for Thursday night's big discussion. Kusa X. See, like people bailing out. They're like, I thought this was going to be a Kusa X podcast, and it's that dude with the beard. He's wearing a toboggan today inside. It's cold. Just walked my dog. But yeah, big things this week, man. Big launches, big parties.
Yeah, a lot of product launches this week.
I like that, Jason Cassidy. Cold as ice in Orion outside. That it is, my friend. That it is. Oh man. So what do you got going on, dude? It's been a minute.
Yeah, just scrambling, trying to fill whitetail tags right now. I guess since the last time we were on here, I made a trip to Indiana. Just struggled to get deer in front of me. Conditions weren't great, but with the rut going on, you never know what's going to happen. Put eyes on a few young deer, a few does, nothing in range. I did see one that was probably an 11 or a 12. He come down off a holler on a neighboring farm down into the bottom across the creek, got him a drink, and then moved on off the other direction and had no interest in my grunt calls. So it was cool to put eyes on him. Probably the most mature thing I've seen thus far. I got out last weekend here in Pennsylvania for a little urban sit and watched a little 2.5-year-old and a few of his does kind of hang around on the hillside for a while, and he had no interest in what I had to say either. So he had 3 does, and the fact that he had 3 does with him tells me there's not a whole lot of competition in that area. The buck to doe ratio is probably a little lopsided, and he didn't have to fight real hard. So just going to give it another swing here in PA this weekend, and then it's home to Indiana for Thanksgiving and a few more sits in the woods back home. So just
and shout out to the one and only Chris Cooper if you're watching tonight, man. That's a great deer. Great deer.
That was a good buck. He hunted his tail off in Illinois.
Yes, he did. He made an effort at it. And shout out to Nick Brummett, our other camera guy that when we're out doing our own little filming stuff here in Indiana, tags around us. He got a heck of a buck.
Yeah, a little buck and a doe combo there at 25 yards.
Twofer.
He's probably back to fishing now.
No, we ain't fishing right now. I can promise you that. It's a mild 29. But good news, the humidity will be 53% tomorrow. Oh, but it's only going to be 39. So there's that.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I have some of the luck soon that our guest tonight just had here lately. He's had a heck of a run these last couple of weeks.
Why don't you introduce our guest? Tell us about our guest tonight, Zach.
Well, first and foremost, he's a family man. He's got his wife and 4 kids up there in Nebraska. He's got a heck of a cool career. He gets to travel around and shoot some cool events through the lens of his camera. he also enjoys sitting in a tree stand once in a while when he can. Welcome tonight, Adam Bender.
What's happening, fellas?
I got this button, Adam, and I hit it from time to time. Just
got it.
I've threatened to take it away from him, but he's too far away.
Noted.
What is going on tonight, man?
Not much. Running around the house, taking care of kids, and it was bath night, so got all that done so I could be here.
Well, we appreciate it.
It's gonna be touch and go whether or not they listen and everybody stays upstairs because bedtime's coming up. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I
know the feeling. I'm a couple hours ahead of you, so I actually had to go out and diffuse a fight between the 2-year-old and the 4-year-old.
Oh yeah,
a minute ago before coming down. The 2-year-old had bit the 4-year-old, so that's
good times.
Always a fun one.
It will not be your last. I can promise you.
No, the young one's a little spitfire, so
they get bigger and it turns into bigger fights.
Yeah.
Yep, that's a fact.
So drag them out. Tell them to go out in the yard. Settle it out in the yard. That's what my wife's dad used to do.
Yep. It gets so dark though now. Like I get home from work at 5:30 and it's pitch dark, and can't send them outside. Like normally they are outside until it's like time to come in, but it's so dark now and homework and as Zach knows, we got gymnastics one night, then we got CCD another night. There's always something, and then you have 4 kids. It's like volleyball. Holy cow!
Yeah. We had gymnastics
have
tonight.
4 kids, they said.
Yeah. Yeah, we had gymnastics tonight, and dance is Thursday, and it's nonstop. But I've only got 2. I was smart enough to stop there. So.
I'm a glutton.
Well, Adam, it's Well, you got a boy this last time, so
I did. I gambled 3. I thought it was going to be like baseball, like 3 strikes, you're out, 3 outs, you take the field. But we played with fire, and 4th one got that boy.
There you go.
Awesome.
Always applaud you for taking that gamble. There's a lot of people, they'll call it at the 3 and say, well, best effort. But no, hey, sometimes you got to go.
Yep, that's a fact.
Go for the gold.
A braver man than I. It's man, it's awesome to have you here tonight. I know you and I have chatted a lot just back and forth through Instagram, and I think probably when I got turned on to just who you were and kind of being around was 2019 when Evan Williams and myself we had taken a couple bulls out in Colorado, and he whipped out that Pals coin and wanted a couple photos with that to send over to you, and we kind of got to chatting and stuff, and I was like, well, this needs to be a guy that I need to kind of bring into people I pay attention to. So it's great to finally get to sit down and chat.
Likewise, appreciate the opportunity, and hopefully I got a few nuggets of information to hopefully entertain the audience and yourselves.
Dude, it'll be better than anything that Zach and I can have to say. So just know that there's only a few people that watch this, mainly our moms.
Yep.
And the guy that could probably fire us. That's how that goes. So let's kind of get into this thing. And why don't you give us a little backstory? It's one of the things we like to do on the Orion podcast. Get a little backstory. Kind of tell us how you got into hunting, how you found your love for the outdoors.
Yeah. I mean, mine probably sounds like everybody else. My dad, I grew up in a rural community, and hunting, fishing, that's all we did. And ever since I was old enough to walk, I was always had ambitions to be outside with my dad. If I couldn't find my dad, I was trying to find him. And what he tells me and what I can kind of remember, when I was about 3, I started walking CRP fields with him, trudging through for roosters in Nebraska back when we had pheasants. But yeah, I mean, I was that kid who eats, sleep, breathe hunting and fishing, and had no idea that someday it would turn into a career and what I do now. I always thought back, when everybody's 12, 14 years old, they're watching hunting TV and watching Ted Nugent on public access and things like that. You're like, man, I want to do that someday. And then, lo and behold, by the time I was 25, I was I was on Eastman's Hunting TV and running their magazines and hunting on TV and going all over the world, chasing those guys with the camera. And it's it's been crazy. But yeah, my love for the outdoors all stemmed from my dad and my family. I mean, hunting and fishing were what we did. And when we weren't hunting and fishing, we were, camping. And it's just everything we did was outside. And that's kind of like Zach said, it's who I am today. And that's what me and my wife and kids, that's all we do is hunt, fish. So very much an outdoors related family, going back all the way to my wife is from a cattle farm in east central Nebraska, and same thing. She spent all of her time outside. So natural match made in heaven.
We're the last true generation that played outside.
That's a fact. And I'm trying my best to buck that with my kids. But you wouldn't believe it. Like, boy, you would believe it. Pulling my kids out of school to go hunting. And I tell the office they just got an appointment. But then we get there and, they're like, my dad shot a deer this morning. And they're like, what? And it's so crazy, because living in Lincoln, Nebraska, it's, big metropolitan area of Nebraska. And it's like, you just, kids in these huge schools now don't talk about hunting and fishing, whereas when I grew up, you and all of your 5-6 best friends, that's all you did. And now today it's like my kids are now the outliers, but that's all right. They wear it with pride.
Yeah. I can remember just getting on the bike, man, and you just ride a couple miles, go see your buddies. I mean, if you wanted to like go to your buddy's house or whatever, it wasn't like call and set up an appointment. You just jumped on a pedal bike and you went.
Yeah. Grab the rods, hit the creek, just, do whatever you could do to stay outside.
Life was a lot simpler back then. That's for sure.
We just didn't care. We just didn't care.
We didn't know any different. Didn't know any different. There was a lot fewer screens there than there is now.
You guys remember getting your first computer? Like I remember like vividly getting this huge. It was a big gateway.
The screen was like this big, and the body was like this.
Yeah, and it had like a big tower. I mean, I'll never forget the first computer my family got, and like that was back when like you got on the internet and it was that, and like, man, like now today, and my kids are like boop on their iPad and they got whatever. And it's like, man, I'm making myself sound old, but it's like, geez, was it really that long ago that's how far we've come?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know what fast internet was till I went to college in Indianapolis, and I was like, oh, I don't have dial-up anymore. This is great.
Old dial-up internet.
Yeah. Remember when they mailed Netflix?
Oh yeah.
You're like, what?
Yeah.
They mailed it to your house.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with my grandma last weekend, and she was like, I've got a bunch of old like videos of my papa and stuff like that. She's like, I need to have them put on a CD so that I can keep. I'm like, Mom, all CDs are not a thing anymore. Like, that's a step backwards at this point.
Yeah, for sure. So growing up in Nebraska, I mean, that's epic. Number one.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a good place to be. But, traveling around the world, I mean, you've done some pretty epic things. It's November 1st, number one. Let's start here. It's November 1st. First, second. Well, I don't know what it is. It's the first couple weeks of November.
Today's the 15th.
I launched a boat. So, Adam, forgive me. I've launched a boat this week.
Yep.
And it's my equilibrium's out of balance.
Gotcha.
How's deer season going, dude? Let's long story short. How's deer season going?
It was real good. I killed a deer in Iowa with my bow, and then I just Saturday night shot a buck here in Nebraska on a rifle tag with my kids. So in a matter of a week, filled 2 tags. Definitely haven't had that run of luck in a long time. I still got a bow tag here in Nebraska for archery, but don't know that I'll fill it. I kind of, after about this time of year, I'm kind of leaving be, done being mad at them, and now I'll switch to ducks and geese. We got this cold snap now, and ducks and geese showing up like crazy, and kind of get mad at the green from now on. But yeah, had a great deer season. It was, short, but Iowa, man, special place. I've heard about
Yeah.
Iowa. I've got tons of buddies in the outdoor industry. I've all hunted Iowa on a regular basis, it seems, and I never had. In 2015, I was hosting a guy out in California on a trip on a boar hunt, and we're just BSing one day, and he's like, "You like hunting deer?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well," he's like, "You ever hunted Iowa?" And I'm like, "Nah." And doing what I do for a living, like very connected in the whole outfitting world and all that stuff. I guess I just never really explored it. I'm like, man, I live in Nebraska, whatever. But he's like, just start getting some points. When you draw, call me. So 6 years later, I finally, draw the tag and call him up. And I said, hey, is that offer still stand? He's like, yeah, absolutely. Come on over. And it was so great, because he's just a good old boy farmer. I would, not very technologically advanced. And I'm asking him like, all right, give me like, do you got Onyx? How do I find your farms? I want to like visually scout them, before I get there. And he's like,
Right.
Adam, he's like, I'm the fourth generation here. I've lived here every day of my life. I know where the deer are. Just show up. And I'm like,
There you go.
okay. Well, he appeased me, and he's like, just go to this county that he was in, GIS, and type in my last name and tell me what you see. And I did, and I typed it in, and I'm like, oh, I'm like looking all around, and so I'm screenshotting him, and I'm texting him to him. I'm like, can I hunt all this? He's like, yeah, everything you see this on there, that's ours, or it's my brother's, or whatever. Nobody else is gonna hunt it but you. So super busy. Try and fast forward this, but with what I do, it's a lot of work, a lot of travel. So I didn't exactly have a ton of time to go over. So I bombed over there middle of October and hung up some cameras, and based off his recommendations. And but I kid you not, I was driving home from Iowa, and I got a photo of a deer bigger than any other deer I've ever gotten in Nebraska in my life road trip. And it's like,
man.
I'm not even home. These cameras ain't even soaked for 12 hours, and I got a bigger deer
Right.
than I've ever seen. So fast forward a couple weeks, man, it's just crazy. You hear about all these bucks, and you hear like age. Everybody talks about how just these deer are just there's older, and I know there's the whole myth of around every tree there's a 180 or 200-inch deer and whatever, and a lot of people think that, but just the age class of deer and the not even necessarily antler size, but just of deer that I was seeing on camera, I'm like, man, I gotta get over there soon. So naturally, like I said, he's a big farmer, and get over there, and obviously first thing I ask is like, where are you at with harvest? And he's like, I'm probably 50% done. He's like, but around that farm that you're on, he's like, I haven't pulled out any corn. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not what I wanted to hear. And I had kind of noticed that as the rut was starting to pick up, I'm like, I was seeing less and less deer on camera, and I'm like, man, this is not good. Like late October, it was fire. I mean, we were
Right.
getting bucks hitting scrapes every day, multiple times a day. And then right about that first week of November, it just kind of like switched. And
Yeah.
any rate, I got over there. It's not a big epic story. Got over there on a Saturday, walked in that afternoon because I drove over in the morning, and I bumped a hot doe with 4 bucks, and 4 bucks all bedded right by her. And I just wanted to like crawl and my sleeping bag and cry myself to sleep because one of them was one of my big shooters, and they all
Yeah.
4 just bounded away on this doe. Sat the rest of that night, didn't really see much, seen a couple of yearlings and whatever, and ended up going the next day. So it was November, what was that, 6th, the next Sunday morning, and got into that stand, and man, just got one of those rut hunts that like when this was after that cold spell and where it was real windy, 10 days ago, it was super windy, and that wind finally laid down that Sunday morning. And man, it was just like a bow hunter's dream. Little bucks cruising, grunting, chasing does and fawns, and knowing what I had known, and with the corn situation, I'm like, man, there's not a lot of bucks on this property right now that are daylighting or that are coming through my funnels. So seeing this little buck go down a creek on the other side, and he heads down, and out of the bedding area comes this old buck. He was a busted up 8-point, and I knew who he was, had pictures of him. And man, it was like one of those things you could just see, like you knew what was coming because he's heading right at him. He's coming out. He sees him. And sure enough, they square up. The busted up buck pushes this buck off the creek and throws him down into the water. Snort wheezes at him. I mean, it's just like you're getting the bow hunting.
Oh yeah.
Man, this is what you live for. And the buck's standing there, it's cold, and his breath is panting, and I just hit him with one grunt, and he just whips his head 180 degrees, looks at me, and he's looking at me in his ears, and he can tell he's trying to hone in on where it's coming from. So
Right.
I gave a couple tending grunts, like it was a buck chasing a doe, and he literally pinned both ears back and just came and started walking on a beeline. I mean, if there were sticks or brush, he didn't care. He walked right through it, crossed this creek, comes up the other side, pops out in front of my stands. So he's 175 yards when I seen him. He pops up at 40 yards through the CRP, and I'm like this is, and I'm in my head, I'm like, okay, I know he's not a giant Iowa, that you see all over social media, and seems like everybody kills him. But I'm like, all right, that's a good deer. He's a mature deer.
Yeah.
I know he's 5+ just because his face is so short and his body's huge. I'm like, man, if he does it right, I'm gonna arrow him. And 40 yards, he's looking around, he's trying to figure out where it's coming from, and I'm ready to go. And man, he just literally pins his ears back, eyes go white, bristles all up, and just comes in and does I call it the drunken sailor walk. And he walks right into my shooting lane, gets to 16 yards. I hit him with a mat. He doesn't stop. And I'm like, rat. And I had to be a little louder because you could tell he was so pissed off looking for a fight. 16 yards, bury the pin, shoot, passes right through. And this is like the craziest thing. Like, this is like the deer in the rut are just so amazing when you catch a mature buck that's in this mood. I mean, buck just got shot right through both lungs. He goes 2 steps and just stands there and he's looking around, and I'm like, I just pinwheeled this deer.
Happened.
I mean, my Luminoc is glowing right there. I'm like, what is going on? And he goes, and I seen some blood come out of his nose. I'm like, man, he's dead on his feet.
Yeah.
And walked 20 yards, tipped over dead. And it was a good deer. I mean, it was just textbook. And some buddies and industry acquaintances were like, man, why would you shoot that deer? And I'm like, it's Iowa. And I'm like, hey, I got 4 kids.
Right.
I have a very busy career. I got one of the best bow hunts that I can remember to date as far as action goes. And I'm like, I'm absolutely tickled pink to put my tag on that buck. I mean, it's just to make a perfect shot and have him shot him at 16, died at 44. It's like, you can't draw it up any better than that. And it was the perfect bow hunt in my eyes. And like I told a lot of people that asked me, they're like, what's he score? And I'm like, man, it don't matter to me. Like whatever that buck scored really is so erroneous to what I saw. Like nobody saw what I saw in that tree that morning. Like nobody can experience it. There's no photos of it. There's no videos of it. Only I saw that. And that's why I shot that deer. And could I have held out and, spent 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 days there? Absolutely. But it's kind of one of those things that when you're in that tree and it all lines up, it's like you live in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all about the experience, I mean, trophy's not always in the antler size. Like you said, he was a 5+ year old deer, which to me is as much a trophy as anything. Just getting on a mature buck of that age is such a challenge when it comes to hunting whitetails to begin with. And then to top it all off, you get to see him bust up another little buck, and he comes in all stiff-legged and ready to whoop somebody else. And, just the whole thing just came together the way it was supposed to. Yeah. And not only that, a big 8's awesome anyway.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for big 8s. I mean, the only thing better was a Big 10. But then I got home from Nebraska, and then I shot a Big 10. So it worked out. So I got the Big 8, then I got the Big 10, and the Big 10 was with my kids. This buck, no history with him, whatever. Just a new buck showed up on a tiny little piece of property that I got permission to hunt, and told my kids. And I'm like, we'll go out there, we'll try and get him. And yeah, just one of those things that if you believe in a higher power, it was meant to be, because there's no reason we should have killed this deer. We were late, we were loud. I had a 3-year-old little girl taking on her first time hunt. This is her first time hunting, and her big sister, who's 9, who's hunted with me since she was about her age. And get this blind all set up, and get everything done. I pull out into this field, pop up a blind. It's 3:45, and sundown's in an hour and 20 minutes. And sure enough, we get in the blind, I get them all situated and everything's going good. And Doe walks out and I'm like, man, there's got to be a buck. And then sure enough, that 10 point pops out behind her. And, my kids just got the show of all shows. I mean, it's only 100 yards. So they can see it with their naked eyes.
Right.
And my little 3-year-old, she's like, Dad, are we going to take him? I'm like, yep. I'm like, we're going to take him. And just to do that with them, man, I mean, yeah, I've killed bigger deer, but I think as far as passing it on, which if anybody knows me, that's kind of my mantra and the future of hunting and fishing. And like it's not always about getting something, but I think that when you're with kids that are at a very impressionable age, like a little 3-year-old, if you can get something, boy, it just makes it stick that much better.
Cements it in their memory.
I mean, if it was a doe, I had a doe tag too, so I was totally prepared. But I told my 9-year-old, she's like, Dad, we got a doe tag too. I'm like, yep. I said, but it's the rut, honey. There's got to be a buck. She ain't by herself. And he came out and it was awesome. It was definitely one of those moments you love to be a dad because to watch it through their eyes, and see the excitement and the questions and the wonder and that smell and all those things, it's like all those moments that you remember growing up given to, your dad and uncles and grandfathers and stuff like that. When you get to be on the receiving end of that, man, there's nothing better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, my 4-year-old's just recently started asking. She wants her own bow. She wants to go out and she wants to go hunt. And she's like, but I don't want to cut them up because the knife's too sharp for me, she said. And I said, well, that's fine. I'll take care of that part. Don't you worry.
There you go.
But, it's funny because I really didn't expect her being more of the girly girl to have any interest in it. But just here lately, she started showing some. And I was like, man, I wish I had a blind just to get her out in the field, when the does come out at night to feed and stuff. And yeah, I can't wait to get out there and share that experience with them for sure. And I don't remember what we were doing. I flipped open Instagram and saw your story, and the big cheesy grin on your 3-year-old's face was hysterical.
The best thing is, like I said, my kids have been hunting with me ever since they were little, and I've been taking them and making them a part of it. So my 9-year-old, she's like, Dad, can I put that buck in my room? Because her and her 7-year-old sister, they got turkey fans, beards. They got European mounts. They got skull plates all in their room. And the 3-year-old Skylar from the back seat goes, what? And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know she was listening. Right. And she's like, that's my buck. And I'm like, okay. So now the 3-year-old's getting this deer. My buddy's doing a European for me. And she's going to get it in her room. And boy, she's going to be proud as a peacock.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. That's funny. They're always listening. They're never not listening.
Even when they're 22, they're still eavesdropping and listening. Let me tell you guys, that's what you got to look forward to.
Yeah. My 9-year-old, she's going on 19. So I very much know what you're saying there.
Yeah. When you talk about passing it on, obviously, raising the kids in the outdoors and everything, you're huge into conservation as well. What's been some of your goals and, as far as trying to get more active in that realm of things on the conservation side and, making a difference either, state or nationally, just with some of the things that are going on?
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of work, so what I do, I mean, I guess I should say that is, I run the signature events program for Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's Club. What I do is I put together hunting and fishing trips all over the world for our customers. And then myself and then one of the 4 guys on my team host all of those trips. So from Asia to New Zealand to Alaska to Argentina to Greenland, Iceland, Europe, Spain, you name it, we go there and put together high-end trips for these customers. And one thing that's been really neat for me is a couple of years ago, back in 2019, we started what we call the conservation experience with Ivan Carter, who I'm sure you're familiar as a world-renowned professional hunter. Did a lot of it when Shockey was doing a lot in Africa and stuff like that. You often saw Ivan Carter, and he's now, transferred. He still does professional hunting, but does a lot on the conservation front. And we became good friends. And when he found out what I do with Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's and kind of this club member and how they want to go out and do these cool things, he's like, what if we put together like a conservation experience? So got these 4 club members together. They funded this whole thing. They paid a lot of money, went over to Mozambique, and we flew around in helicopters and darted elephants and sable and zebra and reed buck and fit them for collars to basically monitor their GPS, monitor their movements, understand better science and data, because as we know, science and data and stuff like that, it's the foundation of conservation when it comes to anti-poaching and stuff like that over
Right.
there. So that trip really like foundationally changed me, because when it's one thing to continue to, tear out your check and send it off to RMEF, DU, Pheasants Forever, all that stuff. But really where the
Mhm.
rubber met the road for me was when we physically got to go put our hands on these animals and actually do the work. So not only fund it, but then do the work. And that trip alone really lit. I mean, I always thought about conservation, but I thought about it from the lens of like everybody else. Like, you got to belong to these organizations, which you absolutely do. But I started to search for more ways. Like, what else can we do? And it's kind of one of those things. And Zach, I know you've saw a lot of my posts and maybe some of my rants, around
I
hashtag.
always take the time to read them.
Yeah, I get a lot of crap. I get a lot of crap for those long books, but
I
man,
bet. I bet.
it's one of my things. It's just I've always had a way with words, and I enjoy writing and things like that. So that's how I get it out there. But hashtag conservation versus conservation are two very different things.
Right.
And a lot of people want to put hashtag conservation on all their posts today, because that's the virtue signal way of saying, hey, I'm making a difference towards conservation. And I think that collectively we're falling short. We're a lot of talk, not enough action. And for me, and I understand that not everybody has kids, but that's why I am so outspoken about the
Mhm.
kids, because if you want to make a difference, there's your easiest and best entry point right there. A $13 Zebco 301 fishing combo from Walmart and a panfish box, and you can fundamentally change a kid's life.
Yep.
And that's just, to me, it's like, it's so easy, but at the same time, it takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of time, takes
Mhm.
access. You look at all the things that we're up against when it comes to conservation and the challenges we face with getting people into hunting and fishing. They're all very real. Like you said earlier, Chad, it's like life was simpler back then. You could walk up to a guy's house and shake a hand, and you could go hunt his 40 out back.
Yep.
Now
Mhm.
today it's like, well, yeah, but what will you pay me? Because
Yeah.
they know it's worth money.
Yep.
So yeah, those days are gone largely. Still
And
happens.
will you sign this waiver?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very real thing. So I think it's just the nature of where we are as hunters and anglers. Um, you patrol social media, and you see all these different takes on it. And I think everybody likes to sing kumbaya and put hashtag conservation on their post, because that's the best way to signal that you stand for this. And I agree, and I understand where people are coming from. They mean well, but I
Mhm.
think what we have to really rip the Band-Aid off and ask ourselves is like, is talking about it and just talking, what's that going to get us? And that's why I've just kind of taken the stance of trying to be a little bit different in that aspect, where you see a lot of people out there, and it's the me, and it's all for the likes and all for the clicks and the shares and the engagement. And I understand all that stuff's important in the marketing world, but it's like, it's just such a short-sighted approach, because in the not too distant future, that stuff won't matter, and then there's going to be nobody to fill our shoes. And as a father, I think you take that on your shoulders, as that's going to be something that you can make an impact on. And that's the route that I've decided to go with my kids. And my wife is fully on board. I mean, Zach, better than anybody, everything she kills is bigger than me. As I sit here and I look at 350-inch bull elk she killed, 180-inch whitetail she killed. I mean, I don't have anything as big as my wife. So everything we do when it comes to the outdoors, it's definitely a decision together. And she's got kind of, my back on all of this.
Yeah.
Now, how did the journey into where you're at now? How did you get started there, like photography and all the different stuff that you're doing?
So I was a day away in college. I went and I was a news editorial journalism major. And I was a day away from taking a job in Rio Rancho, New Mexico, being a sports writer photographer for a weekly newspaper. So you can about imagine now if that newspaper is still going. I don't think it is. But I was a day away from taking that job, and I got a call from Cabela's, and they're like, "Hey, we heard you like to hunt and fish, and you can write, and you also take your own pictures, and we'd like to talk." So I had just moved home from college, had all my stuff still packed up in my dad's trailer, and went out to Cabela's, and they did the interview on a Wednesday. They offered me the job on Friday, and I moved out on Sunday, and I started work as a copywriter. So that was kind of where my career started, was writing all the catalog and internet copy for all the products that you see at Cabela's. So a pair of boots to socks to waders to arrows, all that descriptive copy that says, this is why you need this.
Yeah. And writing copy is a huge job. It really is.
It was, back then I didn't look at it as hard as it was, but man, now that I've removed myself from it, good copy is an art form, and I look at marketing today through a totally different lens. When you understand how to write, persuasive copy. And that's kind of where I cut my teeth. I was out in Sydney, Nebraska from 2007 to 2010. And that's kind of what lit the fire for what all this is now, 16 years later.
Wow.
Doing this job.
Very cool.
That's pretty awesome. So moving into the Signature Series events, tell us a little bit more about that. Kind of how you guys get involved with it, how you guys kind of develop the program, and what folks can do to kind of find out more about that.
Yeah, so it's a program that's exclusive to Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's club members. So you have to have our credit card. Started back in 2010 with this idea that, hey, we've got this customer base. We know pretty much everything about them. We know their spend. We know their affinity. We know what categories they shop at within Cabela's. Why don't we offer them some type of benefit that no other credit card could? So back then, there was a company within Cabela's called Outdoor Adventures, and they were a hunting and fishing booking agency that had been in business for years, but it was always this separate arm of the company. Well, that's when Club approached them and said, we have this signature status on the card that when you unlock a certain threshold on spend, it becomes signature. What if we created this program like Signature Outdoor Adventures? So that's where the name came from. And what it was we were going to go, curate the very best of the best trips. So if there's 5 outfitters, we were only going to work with the top 2. And it started with one trip in 2010, and it was a fly fishing trip to the Clarks Fork River in Idaho. And basically, we went after fly fishing because we're like, all right, we're going to go after the guy who spends all of his money on sage rods and reels. And he's got, fine scotch and bourbon and smoked cigars, and he's got discretionary income. That's our guy. That's who we're going to go after. Trip comes, they market it, sells out right away, 10 spots. Get to the trip, get to know the customers. 8 of the 10 had never picked up a fly rod before.
Wow.
And we were like, whoa. Wait a minute, what happened here? We thought we were going after the guy who only buys Macallan, and he's got, Romeo and Juliet's in his traveling humidor. That's who we thought we were going after. And we got 8 people out of 10 who had never picked up a fly rod before. And they all told us, they're like, well, I've always loved to hunt and fish, but I always wanted to fly fish. And, I got this postcard in the mail, and it had this amazing lodge and beautiful views, and the food looked amazing, 5-star accommodations. And it had Cabela's name on it. So why would we not? That seemed like a great place to learn. So that was the very first trip. And that was where the light bulb went off. Man, we're going about this wrong. We thought we had to go find a customer to fill the trip. We just need to get the trip, and then the customers are going to fill it. Well, fast forward to 2023, and next year we have 83 trips.
Wow. Wow. I knew you guys did a lot, but
yeah, 83 trips, and we send along a host and a professional photographer on every single one. And the unique thing is what makes it so cool is that it is 100% exclusive to us. So we sign a contract with that outfitter, whether it's in New Zealand or Africa or Alabama, wherever. And we sign an agreement that says from this date to this date, it's only our customers. So what that allows us to do is really create a unique catered experience. So from the moment that, let's say, Chad, where's somewhere you want to go in the world? Like, what's a bucket list trip?
Dang. Ooh, a lot of places, dude.
Put him
I
on the
would have
spot.
Yeah, you had to put me on the spot. I'd say the one place that I have never been that I want to go is actually the Susquehanna River.
Okay. So, let's say we got a trip up on the Susquehanna, and from the moment Chad books that trip, Chad has a VIP concierge from my team assigned to him. So he's no longer sending cold emails to like, hey, what do I pack, or what should I expect, or how's the weather looking, or what should I pack gear wise, or travel wise from the airport, etc. So my team comes in and does all of that. So my team is there to basically answer every question you have from the moment you book until the time you get off at the airport. We've done all the homework to know that you're on Delta flight 402, you're getting in at 4:45, and we know that your bags are going to be down at Carousel 6. So me or somebody from my team is standing at Carousel 6, and when Chad walks off the plane, we're like, hey, Chad, Adam Bender from Cabela's Signature Outdoor Adventures. And the look on Chad's face is like, holy cow, like this dude's real. Like I've been talking to him for a year about this trip, and here he is standing in front of me. And then when you take that person on that trip and you're there, when they finally catch that big fish, or they finally put their hands on a bull that they've dreamed of hunting their whole entire life, it creates a really, really cool connection for people that they couldn't get elsewhere, because we know that people are very busy, and they know that they want to go to the Susquehanna, but they don't know where to start. They don't know what outfitter to use. Where should I stay? How am I going to get food? How am I going to get to the river back and forth? We take all that worry out so people can just show up and enjoy themselves.
Right.
And then we do lots of personal hand touch points, like handwritten notes. We put together a really nice gift box. We send them a custom coffee table book of all the photos that our professional photographers take on the trip. We write handwritten notes in all of those, like, hey, Chad, it was awesome seeing you catch that big old brown, blah, blah, blah. That's the type of stuff that we do to really differentiate ourselves. And there's lots of people that sell hunting and fishing trips, but there's nobody that really does it at the level that we do with the customer service side of, and it all stems back to carrying a 2x3 piece of plastic.
Yeah.
That is
That's
very,
crazy.
very cool.
That's one thing that's always really impressed me, just seeing you, post this stuff afterwards and putting together your books, and just, the photography aspect of it. Because as we both know, snapping a shutter takes a second, but it freezes that moment in time so that you have it for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And I think with the cell phones, right? Everybody lives on these things today, and they can't not put them down. And it's like, when we pay, we make the investment to send a professional photographer that brings in top of the line equipment and just says, hey, keep your phone in your room. We got you covered. And
Right.
we not only do we get, the holding up the fish, or, holding the big, rack in New Zealand, et cetera, but it's those little things that people don't look for. It's the amazing sunset, or it's the wildlife shot that they wish they could have always taken, or it's the plate of food, or that night, or it's them all sitting at the bar laughing hysterically.
Right.
Those are those moments that you never get with a cell phone. And that's what we pride ourselves on as a true differentiator, because we really just tell people, like, just show up and enjoy and let us do what we do best. And it's, we got a huge supply and demand problem. We launch these trips, they're gone in minutes. The demand for them is just absolutely crazy. Never in my wildest dreams, did I think that it would grow to where it's at today. And we show, absolutely no signs of slowing down.
Yeah. I think it goes to it solidifies a little bit kind of what my wife and I have been noticing here lately. And we've tried to focus more on this, is less on material items. Obviously there's some material items you need, but the experiences
people want experiences.
That's what we crave now.
People want to, and especially after the last couple of years, not to dive into that, but
right.
We just had a meeting with MasterCard the other day, and they said that experiential travel is up 200% across their portfolio. And it's like, wow. And it's like, and that's the space that we play in, hunting and fishing trips all over the world. And it absolutely makes sense, when we launch these trips, and you get, a dozen elk spots in Utah, and they're gone in 2.5 minutes. and they're 15 grand a pop. It's
Yeah.
like, holy smokes. It's
Yeah.
just people want to go travel and they want those experiences. It's becoming less and less about stuff,
Mhm.
and it's become about moments. And I think
Mhm.
that for at least for the world that I'm in right now, it's a great problem to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's a good testament to everything, all these years, you know, Johnny Morris, Bass Pro, Cabela's, all of it, they've done so good. I mean, in how they assemble things. I listened to a podcast a while back with Bill Dance talking about how he and Johnny Morris got started, or when Johnny got started, and how he packaged things and done different things to create the environments. And none of that's changed. Those ideas and everything still resonates, and to be able to carry that on and keep it going is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, he's a true visionary, and that's the thing. Like he's passionate about the future of hunting and fishing more than anything, and conservation. So it plays well into our hand, and we're doing these conservation experiences now where club members not only get to, obviously they got to pay, but
Right.
the thing for them is they get to go do things that you can't do anywhere else. Like that trip I was on in August, and we took the 7 kids, four parents and the grandfather to Africa. I mean, those
Mhm.
kids are ruined for life when it comes to the zoo.
Yeah.
Because they will never look at a zoo the same, because I mean they were collaring a wild lioness. I mean, they were holding an elephant's trunk, keeping it, the ability to breathe while it was sedated. It's like, man, I feel sorry for those teachers that are like, hey, it's field trip today, we're going to the zoo. Those kids are gonna be like, yeah, whatever. That doesn't
Right.
compare to what on that trip I did with Bass Pro and Cabela's.
Yeah, they're gonna
That's
be looking
wild.
for the Dippin' Dots cart. You got to do some pretty cool photography sitting in a blind at night on that trip, best I remember.
Yeah, so they had
That was bucket list right there.
they call them over there photo hides, and they're
Okay.
very, very, I mean, they're no different than a duck or goose blind that we would have here on a river, but they go to great lengths to keep them absolutely hidden, with like mesh and tiny little holes so you can stick the lens out. And yeah, almost every night after everybody was going to bed, they got like a big street lamp over the water hole to keep it all lit. And these animals, I mean, I don't know what, I shot everything, and it was like eerily calm, and it's pitch
Right.
dark besides this light. And to have a 7-ton bull elephant walk in and drink 4 feet from you from your lens, it's like, that's
Okay.
life changing, man. And it
Yeah.
was cool. And I think out of all the stuff I shot, those hyenas were my favorite, because like hyenas are just a wild and crazy animal. But as a kid of the 80s, 90s, like all I thought of was the 3 hyenas from Lion King.
Lion King.
And like they
Yeah.
come walking in, and you could tell one of them was like the boss dog, and the other one was
Right.
kind of young, and he was kind of acting stupid. It was just funny. Like I was sitting there, I'm like, man, this is like Lion King all over. And
Yeah.
it was that was super cool. If you ever get the chance to go to Africa and see that, man, I 100% finding a place that will do a nighttime photo hide and allow you to take pictures, because it's crazy.
It's on my list for sure.
Well, when
It's
you're
on
ready
my
to go,
list.
you let me know, because I know the place to send you.
Yeah, I will do that. I'll keep that in mind.
Absolutely.
Keep that in mind. Out of 83 trips in 2023, out of all those, just off the top of your head, what's some of your absolute favorites?
Man, it's like asking me my favorite kid.
Well, yes, I know.
It's hard. It's probably the question I get more than anything. I've been doing this
Mhm.
as long as I have. I've been to a lot of countries and 5 continents. It's crazy, but to me, if I got to pick one, it's Africa, and I only say Africa because Africa done right will change your life, and I'm talking real wild Africa. The culture, the people, the animals. It just is. There's nothing that holds a candle to an African sunrise or African sunset. And I say African done right because I think a lot of people, myself included, I grew up with a father that was like, to hell with hunting in Africa. It's a bunch of canned hunts. I don't need to do that. I can pay money and go to Texas and shoot a zebra. And I grew up with that father who pretty much, that was the way I thought of Africa. Then as I started working in the hunting industry, and then especially when I got my job now, and I start meeting all these PHs and outfitters from all over the world, and it's like, man, that's not necessarily the case. Like, yes, that stuff does exist. There is, very, very quote unquote canned hunts over there that are, McDonald's drive through. You order your 5 animals, you come in, shoot them, they kick you out the door, and then they unload 5 more, and they do it all over again for the next people. That does happen, and there is a place for that because there is clientele that want that. But I think when you go and you stay in wild Africa in a deluxe tent safari camp, and you hear lions roaring at night, miles and miles away, but they feel like they're right outside your chalet. Yeah, that'll change your life, man. I mean, nothing gets me going like Africa, just because of some of the experiences I've been able to have over there. And if I had to pick a 1A, 1B, it would probably be New Zealand or Austria. New Zealand and Austria were both absolutely incredible. New Zealand, just because of the amazing hunting and the views. Austria, because those mountains are unlike any other mountains I've ever seen in the world. They shoot up out of the ground just straight vertical. I've never experienced vertical like that. Like the Sound of Music, that was all shot right there. And like when you're climbing up there and you're hunting chamois up above 10,000 feet in a scree field, and you look out and like you can see Switzerland. They're like, oh yeah, is that Switzerland? And you're like, oh, it's like, whoa. I mean, you're up way above tree line. That's pretty cool. So yeah, I would say Africa number 1, and 1A, 1B would be New Zealand and Austria.
That's crazy.
Yeah. New Zealand red stag's always been kind of a dream.
Yeah,
but I think
for
that
sure.
would be one that's.
Yep, it's a good one.
Pretty cool one.
It's a good one. It's like the elk rut on steroids.
Right.
It's like if you like hunting elk and chasing bugles, man, when you go over there and you hit the roar just right and those bulls are ripping. I've had customers on post-event surveys tell me that only downfall was that they couldn't sleep because the stags were roaring all night. So it's like, well, I did my job then. At least I got you.
Yeah.
There's just something about it, though. I mean, it's the king's deer.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that alone makes you want it, I think. Just beautiful animals. They really are
incredible.
Very, 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 very cool hunt, and up close and personal, and you really get to be selective about your shots. And because, man, I mean, those it's just like elk. They got one thing on their mind, and nothing's gonna stop them from coming in. When they commit, they're gonna commit. And it's great bow opportunity. If you get any hardcore bow hunters, man, to do it with a bow over there, that's legit.
Yeah, I always wondered what it would be like. And then my 2020 bull, not that he was a giant by any means, but I shot him at 13 yards, and that alone was something that I will never forget.
Yep.
It was insane being that close.
Yep. That's a fact. And that's what you experience over there. I mean, it's close range a lot, and it's a lot of different stags, and the all different crazy rack formations, shape and sizes. And it's pretty neat. Definitely something you got to experience at some point.
Oh yeah. It's on the list. That's for sure. Well, I wanted to touch on one more thing.
Yeah.
And that is, I know you've been on a bit of a fitness journey. How's that going? What's the goals look like? Have you got any big hunts planned that you're kind of gearing that toward, or is it just kind of a overall longevity thing?
Yeah, it's a longevity thing. So my wife and I did a 8-week challenge with our local gym here, and we actually won it. So that was pretty cool. Won like $2,000 in cash. Awesome. So that was pretty cool. But no, it's really, it's a longevity thing. And I think like in the time and age of where my wife and I are at with 4 kids, so crazy busy. The spread on our kids is 9 to my boy will be a year next month. And from 9, 7, 3 in a year, it's like we've got the whole gamut, and we're just so busy. And it's like we come up with all these excuses as to why we can't work out, why we can't eat right, and all that stuff. And we really just decided, like, man, enough's enough. Like, we got to make it a priority, because I'm not getting any younger. I'll be 40 here in 2 years, and it's creeping up on me. And I remember like my dad being the fit dad. And like my dad, you know, he was playing softball, and he was always played noon basketball like 7 days a week. He'd go to the YMCA and play basketball with all these guys, and he had basketball men's league at night during the winter. And it's like, man, I want to be that way for my kids. And I'll be honest, like, it really ramped up when I had that boy, because I was like, all right, here we go. I got my football player, I got my basketball player, I got my baseball player. I got to be able, you know, 38, I got to be able to throw the ball around for him in 10 years and not look bad doing it.
Yeah. And not hurt while you're doing it.
That's true. That's an absolute. I'd love to say that I had a big tag that I'm pushing for. I got a lot of points all over the West. Not quite sure when I'm going to draw what, but yeah, you can better believe when I do finally get one of those tags. Yeah, I'll be ramping it up and putting one of those pictures up in my office to really give Colorado Mule Deer is probably my next one. I got 12 points up there.
Okay,
And,
I'm a little bit behind you, but I'm pretty close. Yeah,
and I really am looking forward to going chasing those in the high country somewhere. And I got enough points to draw it for all those bow tags, but I think I'll do the early season muzzleloader. Just only because I got so many points, and then I can go back in 3, 4, 5 years and do the bow.
Right. Yep. Well, and you got to stay in shape so you can go on elk hunts with your boy too. So
that's a fact. Yeah, as I sit here and look at this bull elk that my wife killed, stares at me every single day now. It's like, man,
that thing's a dream, man.
Yeah,
that bull is
Nebraska once in a lifetime elk tag. Like, I'll never forget that day as long as I live. Like, I thought it was a joke, and I thought it was an error in the system, because it's just like you don't ever hear of anybody drawing those tags. I mean, there's so few, and it's once in a lifetime. You're just like, no way. And yeah, she killed an absolute hammer, and someday I'll get bragging rights in this house.
It'll happen. It'll happen.
It will. It will. Well, Adam, we appreciate you being on here tonight and taking the time to sit down and talk to everybody out there that's listening or that will listen in the after the show. And I mean, that's some cool stuff. Very much.
I love it. I think we touched on pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I'm sure I'll forget something, but
we always do.
It happens.
We're knuckleheads like that.
I know.
We can always revisit down the road.
Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Well, we'll have to come back if you think of something else. You let me know. I'm always down to talk hunting, fishing, or kids and conservation. You know, those are my things that trip me, and be happy to come back and tell stories sometime.
Absolutely.
100%. We've got so many mutual friends in our circle that I've wanted to get you on here and sit down and actually have a good chat.
Now we just got to share a hunting camp, 3 of us. Maybe we'll invite Evan.
I tell you what, I would be. I'm the fisherman.
If we can peel him away from his 4 kids.
I'm probably down for duck hunting. That's
he did just do a big South Dakota pheasant hunt too.
Yeah, that is that's me and Zach's actual. That's one of our bucket items.
I've got a couple over and unders that need some exercise. So
South Dakota is the place to do it, gentlemen. There's nothing like it. And I know you asked it earlier. I probably should have said this, but I'm the president of the South Dakota Second Century Habitat Fund, which is a 501c3 nonprofit that basically raises money for public hunting access and taking care of the land and habitat in South Dakota. So that one's pretty near and dear to my heart. I go to South Dakota every year. Like, everybody asks, like, how do you decide what trips you want to do? And I always do South Dakota just because it's so special. And there's nothing like the volume of roosters they got up there. And it's such a big part of the economy in South Dakota.
Right.
It affects everybody from the grocery store to the hotel to, the post office. It's crazy how far South Dakota has put that economy on the map when it comes to hunting.
And it tasted way better than chicken.
That's a fact. Pheasant marsala. I got a recipe for pheasant marsala that will blow your mind. So
can't wait to try that.
If you want that, I'll send that over.
Very nice, man. Well, we will let you go. I'm going to drop you down below, and me and Zach will close this thing out, and we'll be right back with you, man.
Sounds good.
All right, man.
Awesome.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks, buddy.
You bet. Appreciate you guys.
And there you guys have it. Episode number 21.
21.
21. Look at us go.
Yeah. No, that was a good one.
That was a great one. Very interesting, very fascinating. Always learning. We learn every time we have one of these podcasts.
Well, that's a big goal, I feel like,
Yeah.
is talking to folks who do different things than we do and trying to learn as much as we can about it. So,
Well, there was that one podcast. But anyway.
the lost episode.
The lost episode. Anyway, guys, we appreciate you watching. We will see you guys back here for the Orion podcast. The 29th of November. You're getting 3 this month. Look at you guys go. So we'll be back the 29th of November. New guest, same time, same places. He's there and I'm here. And we'll try not to mess the intro up on that one.
One of these days, maybe you'll get it down.
One of these days, I'll remember what I said. It's like Brummett said, I just overthink it.
Yeah.
And I'm tied to this desk, so I can't move.
Yeah, you do have a problem with that.
I have a moving problem. I have to hold on to things. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the 29th. Bye-bye.
Later.